Hello. Um, I'm trying something new here. So this is the first portrait in a project of celebrating the beauty and excellence I see in other people. I decided I want to do portraits of appreciation. So today's portrait is for Brian Johnson. I've never met Brian in person. I've been listening to him for over 15 years, but I've never actually met him. His work has had a real impact on my life, to say the least. So I'll just come out and say it. There was a time in my life when I hit an all-time low with my drinking. I won't go into all the fun details, but I knew something had to change. That was 2008. I started going to meetings, trying to stay on track, trying to keep my mind right. You know, do what you can. But 3 jobs, life was busy. Work made it hard to stay consistent, so I started listening to speaker recordings. I was downloading MP3s, just trying to fill my mind with something better when I couldn't make it. Somehow I came across a site called learnoutloud.com, and that's when I found Brian. Back then it was Zaadz, his first company. But later I found Philosopher's Notes. I remember listening to things like Self-Reliance, As a Man Thinketh, 50 Things I'm going to Do Today. That was one of my favorite ones. And something just clicked. But it wasn't just the wisdom, it was him. It was the way he showed up, the way he lived, what he was talking about. There was a consistency there, an energy that I wanted. Yeah, something I never really experienced before. So that became my world while I was at the park with my daughter, back when she was tiny. Doing the dishes, during workouts, jogs with the dog, at work. I was always just listening to Brian, trying to absorb it, trying to become better. Yeah, later I found Philosopher's Notes, and wow, I needed them. So I downloaded the first 3 free ones. They were like 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, The 4 Agreements, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I think, or Motivation and Personality by Abraham Maslow. I can't really remember, actually. Anyway, I just re-listened to those and the Zaadz stuff over and over. There was a full set of Philosopher's Notes, 100 of them, but I just couldn't afford the full set. Brian had a payment option, or a scholarship, if you're hard up for cash. And he granted me access to the full 100, and I was just blown away by that generosity. One of the biggest things he did for me was reignite my desire to create. I remember listening to a Philosopher's Note on How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci by Michael Gelb, and that was a good one. A lot of journaling stuff. And something awoke back up in me. I started drawing again. I started doing portraits for coworkers. And eventually, even commissions. And at one point I kept thinking, how do I give back to someone who's helped me this much? So when I found out his birthday was around Mother's Day, I decided to create a portrait for his mom, or of his mom, for him. I reached out to his wife. Back then it was Facebook. Did the portrait, sent it off. And from what I heard, she received it, his mom. She was the one that actually opened the package. She said, oh, I'm in the package. Which meant a lot to me. And I may have fangirled a bit at that point when I received a thank you from Brian. I'm sorry for that, Brian. Anyway, I wish I could say from there everything kept spiraling up and going great, but life got hard again. I drifted. I fell back into old patterns for a while, lost a job. Made a huge move, big move from California, away from my kids. Ended up in Canada at 38, starting over again. Living with my parents. That was great. That's a different story. Went into nursing. Dad highly encouraged a trade. You come back to art later, son. Nursing was the staple path, so I put everything into that. But during that time, I stopped listening to Brian, and looking back, that was probably when I needed Brian the most. It was actually my dad who said something that stuck with me. He said, you were really on when you were listening to that guy. And he was right. So now I'm approaching 50. God. And I've been thinking a lot about direction, about purpose, about not wasting what I've been given. And I keep coming back to this question: when was I at my best? And the answer was clear: when I was learning and creating and listening, when I was trying to live what I was hearing. So this project, Portraits of Appreciation, is my way of returning to that, and also a way of saying thank you to everyone who has had an impact on my life. So, Brian, you helped redirect my life, like someone reaching out and pulling their kid back from traffic. And I don't think I've ever properly said that, so this is my way of doing it. And something he said recently that stayed with me, it was in one of his Philosopher's notes. He said, "We've most certainly never met, but I want to know that I see you." And that really hit me emotionally, because I think for a long time I've been wanting to feel seen, especially by him. And maybe that's part of what brought me here. What I'm starting to realize is I don't need to wait to be seen. I can see. I can take the time to recognize people who have made a difference in my life and say it out loud. I heard about this thing called mudita, celebrating others, celebratory love. Not just think it, not just feel it, but express it through a portrait, a story, a song. I don't have to have it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out. I still struggle with comparisons sometimes, a lot of times. I still wonder if I'm on the right path, looking for validation, for a pat on the back, that I'm on the right path, doing the right thing. But, I want to spend more time appreciating others instead of measuring myself up against them. Because when I really look, there's people all around us making a difference, showing up, helping others. And we don't always stop to tell them what it means. So I've been thinking, how can I serve? So this is my way of saying, I see you and thank you. Because of the phases of men and women, I see heroes, and maybe you'll be next. That's right. You. I'm going to paint you next. So thanks for watching. So now, after you hit like and subscribe, go check out heroic.us. Go find Brian Johnson. Go change your life. Have a great day. Thank you.